This is Wallace Wyss. I'm here with Lynn Park, who I've known for oodles of years. And now, Lynn, you told me the way you got started in this whole thing is back in the 60s. Was the Cobra already existing, and that's when you took this AC Ace and wanted to put a V8 in? Did you give Carroll Shelby the idea, or he had the idea first?
He had the idea first. Actually, back in 1962, I was a Ford hot rodder. I liked to go fast in a straight line, and I put a big Ford V8, big Edsel V8 in my 56 Ford. And my sister's boyfriend was a sports car guy. He had a little Lotus Elite. Great little car, no power.
Did he wear like an ascot tie and kind of look down on you greasy-fingered car people?
He did. All he wanted to do was go around turns and go slow, because that's all the car would do.
Yeah.
And I said, Joe, I said, come on, it's Ford's, it's power. So he came home from school one day and plopped this Road and Track magazine down that had a Cobra on the cover.
The yellow Cobra.
The yellow Cobra.
Is that the same car you own now, or
no? That was the number one Cobra. The first
Cobra.
The
first one.
And he said, "Look, here it is. Here's a Ford and a sports car together." Well, I read that article, and I'm telling you, I was at Shelby American the next week. I was a student at UCLA, and Shelby American was in Venice. That's pretty close. And I went down there, and at the time I was driving a pretty nice car. I was driving a 62 Ford, and Shelby thought I was going to be a customer, but I could afford to buy a Cobra, for crying out loud. I couldn't afford one if I, no matter what.
You didn't lead him on, though.
Of course I did.
Well, I'll fill out that order form in a minute. Shell, just give me a ride.
I wanted to learn more about the car, and I met a fellow who worked there, and he had taken an AC and put a Ford motor in himself. So when I realized I couldn't afford a Cobra, I built my own. But the best part was I hung out at Shelby's a lot. Venice was so close to UCLA, and the guys there thought I worked there. When they have their employee reunions, they think I was one of their employees.
Especially now.
Yeah, exactly.
You're all in your later golden years, we say.
Just kids.
Yeah.
Just kids.
So, well, now the thing is later, how late into collecting them did you get a 427? First you had quite a few 289s, or?
Well, and when I first got interested in Cobras, keep in mind there were no 427s.
Oh, okay.
There were just those 289s for a couple of years, and then all of a sudden the 427 came out, and everybody wanted the 427. It's big, it's got huge fenders, it's got pipes.
Twice pipes.
Twice, at least twice. Bill Cosby just talked about pipes everywhere. And people took their 289s and flared the fenders and put pipes on it to make it look like a 427. That's why today there are so few really, really virgin 289 bodies around that haven't been crunched or modified.
You weren't able to buy used 427 for several more years, or when did they never had a fall off in popularity except when gas was, I remember standing in this gas line where it's $3 worth of gas. So was that the ultimate time to buy one?
In the early 70s, all the Cobras went downhill, as did every performance car, largely because of the price of gas.
But you were taking the long view. Isn't that what they call it in the stock market? The long view.
No, you know what? Back then, I wasn't taking any kind of a view financially. I loved the cars. I was thinking nothing of what they were going to be worth. I just thought of how much fun they are, how much fun they are to work on, to drive, to do things with. And it wasn't until, probably sometimes in the 80s when you realize these cars are going up in value and say, wait, nobody has a hobby that actually makes some money. Your hobby always costs you money. And all of a sudden, Cobras are increasing in value. And I said, well, this is odd. And so that's when you thought, let's buy a couple more.
And but the first time you got into the 427, did you realize, like a guy going from a propeller plane to a jet fighter, like this is a whole different kettle of fish? And were you uncomfortable, or you thought, this is what I've been bred for? You know, like you were bred for a thoroughbred, and all they gave you was nags, or, you know.
Well,
mixing my metaphors, but
I liked the 427 just because it had so much more power. It's easy to drive anywhere. It's just a big old American V8. You put it in fourth gear and you just drive. Up Angeles Crest Highway, any place you go, it's got so much low end torque.
But what about what Carroll Shelby says said that a 427 will kill you in a minute. I mean, if you just got in it for the first time and floored it, it's not even going to go straight, right?
No, a 427 will hurt you. I always tell people on any Cobra, before you put your foot on the floor, make sure you're aimed straight, and never do this with the gas pedal. You just kind of ease it on. Even on the racetrack, there's an awful lot of people that have raced Cobras, 289s, 427s, and they come out of a turn with too heavy a pedal all at once. It's too abrupt, and the next thing you know, they're spinning the tires and going off the track.
Well, I don't know how much time you spent with animals, but there's a saying about Dobermans that they're clean, they're sleek, and you never know when they're going to turn on you. So, like, what animal is a Cobra? Is it like a pit bull that looks friendly, or, you know?
No, they kind of look friendly.
Oh,
They're like your Doberman. You never know. You know when it's going to turn on you, because that's when you put your foot down.
oh, okay.
And you shouldn't.
Now, let me ask you this about most guys that I know, the reason they lost their car is because their wife wanted to build a kitchen. So how did you stop your wife from saying, you got to sell this Cobra so we could redo the kitchen? I mean, that's like a great victory in itself, you know.
I bought a house that already had a nice kitchen.
Oh, you bought a kitchen and it had a nice house around it.
I've been very fortunate. My wife loves the cars. She goes with me on these 1,000-mile trips in the car. Hot, cold, snow, it doesn't matter. She's a good sport.
So if you marry the right wife, then you can be a car hobbyist. Otherwise, okay. Now I think we're going to go look at the cars, but we won't ask the exact number because maybe you've lost track, but at least 10 of them are yours.
There's a flock of them that are mine. It's kind of like asking a rancher how many head of cattle he has.
Yeah, and which cow he likes the best.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go out here. So I got this one light tan, you know, like desert color. Same jack. Oh yeah, that was it. But I like the way they dash. But yeah, you know what? But I don't have two brown stars. So I don't like that.
Well, it kind of outfit me here. This is great.
This is good. But I can't leave these books and sell these. Okay. Yeah,
You know what you didn't do this year?
oh, I know the Christmas thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to call you before Christmas. You still have a group, 30, 40 people?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a really nice party.
And then, yeah, I was talking about that Porsche thing. They're really nutballs, these Porsches, like the chassis number, you know, all this stuff. This book called Carrera, $100 book. So way back in 1957, this Porsche had that number in it. Boy, if you don't have that number, then, you know, you're lucky you can bring it to the show.
Exactly. And the prices go way down. Okay. Corvette people are that way too.
But I never wrote that about Cobras, that the handy thing is you could buy a 289. Is this the same color gold that the 427 of your neighbor has? Hertz Gold, or?
No, that car is called the Pumpkin.
Oh, okay.
The old owner used to call it the Mustard Mother. That car was owned and raced by Michael Goodwin. Now that name might not mean much to you, but Michael Goodwin was the fellow that got convicted of having Mickey Thompson
Oh,
got
okay.
away with.
Oh, okay.
He owned this car and raced it in the 60s. But what this car is a good example of an SCCA racer rather than a pro racer. Mm-hmm. It's not pretty. It's got a roll cage. It's got somewhat primitive flares.
So this is back when Cobras were only worth about $3,000 or so.
Right. This car was raced until 71. In 1971, it was sold to a fellow in Sacramento, outside Sacramento a little bit. Put it in his barn, and it sat for 40 years until I bought it. This was one of the 5 Cobras that Shelby built specifically for drag racing. And it was the fastest of the 5, which just meant the guy had a pretty good motor for it. But this car ran a 1086 at 128 miles an hour. Kel Shelby bought this car for his own collection of cars.
Oh, I see.
And he told me he had it. He wanted to restore the car and have me drive it at vintage events. And I said, Carol, there's no way I'm going to drive your car in a situation where I might crash it and have my name become mud.
Uh-huh.
So he sold it to me.
Oh, okay.
and we've had it out there. There's not a lot you can do with an old drag racer anymore. It's not enough roll bar to be legal, but you can have a lot of fun with it. It's just a pretty car, and to say it was Carroll Shelby's personal car is kind of fun.
Now, what about the patina? Now, I call it like faded paint or dirt, but the fancy antique people call it patina. But I actually met a guy with a kind of crummy-looking Porsche the other day, and I said, "Are you going to paint this?" He said, "Oh no, this is a survivor." So is it almost getting to that now, that if this car was owned by somebody 50 years ago and it was this color, you almost hate to redo it because you're removing history?
Wally, when I tell people when they come in the garage and they say, "What's the most valuable car in here?" I point to the one in the corner called Dirtbag and say, "It is the most valuable car in the garage. It's never been repainted. It's never been restored. Rarely has it been polished. But it's got its original everything on it."
And we won't look at that.
That's what people want today.
Yeah, and okay, Lynn, now the question is, with all these cars here, which one do we get to have a ride in?
Well, you got to realize, Wally, the easiest ones are the front row cars.
Oh, okay.
And I drove this one this morning, so we'll take this one out.
And I don't want to burn my foot on one of the 427s either.
No, you're one of those guys I would not warn you before you get out of the car. So you might burn your leg.
I want to have my badge of honor. Okay, let's go.